if you put a blanket ban on something like social media and you stop children from being able to access it, won't they just find other ways around it?
I think we do have to make changes. I just don't know how they're going to implement it in a way where everybody is happy and everybody is safe. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Brittany.
And I am Laura. Sorry for that noise that I just made at the very start of the episode.
My pet
Did anyone hear that?
Oh, we all heard it.
I heard it.
It's weird that sometimes that happens. You just go to speak and your mouth has to prepare itself to go
It's
beforehand.
also weird that that's what bothers you when for 5.5 years, this is what we hear every 20 seconds.
Yeah, but Keeshia edits those out. So
I
it's
do
fine.
also edit out a lot of the. So for anyone listening who has a bit of a sound aversion like I do, cheek clicks, most of them are gone.
We do.
I suffer for you.
Sometimes Keeshia sends together like a compilation of mouth noises that she's cut down.
I don't get them. It must just be you.
because they're my mouth noises. Hey, so I have some news.
Oh my God. You can't start something like that. In 3 split milliseconds, my brain has gone 100 places to what this news could be.
It's really not that exciting. It's news because I'd forgotten about it and then I remembered, but I remembered very late. Today is it's not mine. It's mine and Matt's 2-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, cute. Wholesome. Loving.
2 years
Oh, we
of
love
marital
love.
bliss.
2 years. That has flown by, especially considering how long the wedding was put off initially. Like, remember, because of COVID, we kept, I was getting married too, we kept postponing your wedding.
Well, when you think about it, so next year in February is when I met Matt on The Bachelor 8 years ago. So it's been 8 years that we would have been together, but then this is our 2-year wedding anniversary. But the problem is often in relationships, you have one person that's not a date person, right? They're not like a birth date person. They're not like an anniversary person. The issue in our relationship is that neither of us are date people. So we often forget things completely. And we were out on Saturday night at a friend's birthday and this random person who we've met literally a handful of times was like, hey, didn't you guys get married in November? Isn't it your wedding anniversary soon?
Okay, stalker.
That's how we remembered. Anyway, I woke up this morning, Lola was in between us and I went to the toilet and I was on the toilet and I'd completely forgotten. Like, I know that we discussed it only on Saturday, but it had completely evaded my memory. So I was on the toilet doing a wee and Matt walked in to get something. Oh no, he walked in to take his retainers out and put them into the glass.
I feel like this is all information that doesn't need to be had for this story, but I'm glad Matt took his retainers out to have
does.
this
Shows
monumental.
the romance isn't dead.
No,
2 years in.
Yeah, it does. Because then I'm sitting on the loo and Matt turns to me.
Again, irrelevant.
And he comes and gives me a kiss on the forehead and goes, happy anniversary, sweetheart. And then goes back to bed. That's it. That's all we've done so far.
Dunny love.
That's it. Dunny love.
Dunny love.
Yes.
That's where you're at.
Some would say it's going down the toilet.
I thought toilet love would come. I thought that kind of celebration would come like, I don't know. I thought you'd have a solid decade, 10, 15, 20 years. 2 years in and you're celebrating on the toilet. I'd be asking questions.
I went back into the bed and I like climbed on top of him, gave him a cuddle and I was like, isn't it crazy? 2 years. Sometimes it feels like a decade. And he goes, I don't know if that's a compliment.
I don't know what to do with that either, actually.
I was like, I just feel like we've achieved a lot in 2 years. Feels like lots happened.
I don't think you have to be date people. Like, I don't think it's that you're not a date person or he's not a date person. I think it's also just adulthood. Like, I think you just get so run off your feet. You and I were talking about this the other day. All of a sudden you blink and it's Christmas. I feel like we all just had Christmas last year. I was over in Scotland with Ben's family. Mitch was on this big trip with me in Europe. Now it's literally 3 weeks away. We're going overseas again and we're celebrating Christmas again.
Yeah, what happened? Where did 2025 go?
I don't know. Fucking who am I? Mate, I'm having these existential crises internally every single day. But I think that's what it is, right? Like, it's not that it doesn't mean anything to you. It's not that it's not important. It's just that you're like, fucking, I don't know what day of the week it is.
I don't know, because there's a lot of people out there who are really like, they will always celebrate a birthday or they will always celebrate an anniversary. I think a lot of people, wedding anniversaries are a big one and they also have themes. So every year has a different theme. Like one year's paper. I know that this year's cotton because
it's like metal or something.
Yeah, like my mother-in-law told me it was cotton, but I haven't done any of it. I might
so
buy
you cleaned his ears. Happy anniversary. It's a cotton bud. I'm going to clean your ears while you're on the toilet.
I was going to buy him some underwear, maybe.
Fitting. I think it's actually
Snug fit, yeah.
I think it's a good thing if you marry someone who's the same, because I imagine if you're a date person and you marry a non-date person, they're going to forget, you're going to get resentful. If 2 date people marry each other, then they're both going to be planning for weeks and it's going to have to be this big thing. But because they're both date people, they'll probably appreciate that. maybe this is one of those things where it's like opposites don't actually attract, opposites have divorces.
Yeah.
I agree. I do agree. I think that if you are too opposite, you are not a good match. I think you should be very similar. And I think it is quite evident that both Matt and I, there's a high chance that the two of us have undiagnosed ADHD. So that's okay. And it works well for our relationship.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Do you feel validated?
Yes, I feel so validated.
After
She's
accusing
getting
me
there.
for 5 years.
I wouldn't use the word accuse.
I just can't believe that was only 2 years ago, though. I mean, I know that 2 years to me feels like a small amount of time, kind of, and not to make this about Britt and I. Sorry, not to make your wedding anniversary about us. But I just think that we are different people to who we were 2 years ago. Because I remember being at Laura's wedding, and we've briefly spoken about this on the podcast, but we may or may not have made out with two of the guests, as in independently. But now I think about this.
Keeshia,
and I'm
I
like,
thought you were about to say that you and I made out. I
No.
thought you were like, no one really knows this. We made out.
So at my wedding, Britt made out with one of the guests and Keeshia also made out with one of the guests. Mind you, I've not spoken to that guest since the wedding.
Neither have
Literally
I.
never heard from him again.
I don't even remember what they look like.
Yours was Matt's cousin.
Well, that's right. I was trying to keep it in the family. I was like, Laura, how cute. Imagine if we all married into the family. Then I was like, not for me. Great guy, not for me. So guys, in 1 week today, I banged Ben. So it's
also your 2-year anniversary.
in 1 week today. It's my bang.
Yeah, a bang anniversary.
1 week today, I banged Ben for the first time. And that has become our bangiversary / anniversary. So we have this discussion all the time. Even a couple of days ago, he's like, babe, have we decided when our anniversary is? Because obviously it's in a week's time. Or it could be in a couple of months' time. So, but we decided from the start that we would go off the bangiversary because when we banged, we fell in love.
Could you blame him?
Such a romantic bang. But like we were basically together from that moment. We didn't speak to another person. We didn't see another person. We were obsessed with each other from day one. So I was like, let's just call it then. Like,
Let's just make it sound like it's longer as well.
let's just make it sound like it's longer. Yeah, because I was trying to hit my own personal record of the longest relationship I've ever had. So I was like, let's just backdate it. Let's pretend we met a year ago. No, so it's our anniversary in a week as well.
Cute. I'm so happy for you guys. Cotton?
Maybe we need to put Laura's anniversary / your bangiversary in our time tree, our shared calendar, and then we can all become date people. We'll just set it as a reoccurring thing in our joint calendar, and then it covers everything.
No, I don't even need it. And I also said to Matt,
She's
I
happy to
don't.
forget.
I
That's also the undiagnosed ADHD.
It's just not a big deal. Like, and I said this to Matt. I was like, "Hey, do you want to go out for dinner or something?" Like, this was Saturday night when we'd been reminded it was an anniversary, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Monday. Do you want to do something? Do you want to go out for dinner?" And he goes, "Why would I want to do that?"
He's like, I'll just meet you on the toilet.
And then I had this moment where I was like, I think that from the outset, people would think that that's highly unromantic and that we're not excited about our anniversary at all. I was like, but to me, I kind of I'm so convinced that we're just going to be together forever. So I'm like, oh, what's the big deal? It's another year. We're going to have 50 of them. We'll celebrate next one.
I think you really should celebrate it. And I say that because sometimes you need a reason. And I know that's shitty. You shouldn't have to have a reason. But how many times do you guys just go, let's go on a cute date night? Sometimes you need an excuse. You've got kids. You've got busy lives. I would take those moments and make the most of them personally.
Yeah. We do have a mother-in-law now who takes care of the kids. We, to be fair, not that you guys need this information, one would think that having a mother-in-law living in the house would mean that there's less romance between you. But actually, there's more. And it's not. It's
Her
not.
bedroom's underneath yours.
It's not because Ellie's a stimuli. It's because she does the cooking and she cleans and she helps so much with the kids that we have more free time.
Eva, did you just refer to sex as romance on a sex podcast? Who are you? Guys, I don't know if you need to have an overshare, but there's more romance in the house and Sally's here.
Well, I didn't want to talk about fucking my husband in the same sentence as about talking about my mother-in-law.
Doesn't have to go to 0 to 100 that quick.
You took it there.
Yeah, you fucking took it there. Mate, do you know what? So when I'm going to see Ben soon, so I'm going overseas we haven't actually spoken about our plans yet, but I'm going overseas for 4 weeks, the month of Christmas and the New Year. So I would have seen Ben for the 1 week since we got engaged in June. So it's a long time. And on the day that I arrive, this just happened to be planned. And I know she's going to listen to this, so there's absolutely zero offense. I'm excited. But on the day that I arrived there, my sister and her husband Jay and their new, very tiny loud, screamy baby, Maya, is going to arrive. So
Romance.
So just talk about romance. So they're coming to meet us in Romania on the same day. So I won't have one night alone with Ben when I arrive, which is not the end of the world, but he's in a tiny like 2-bedroom apartment as well. So at least you're banging, like you've got a big house, Laura. So I'm going to have to have seen him once in 6 months and be banging with like an entire family in a room next door.
And Ellie doesn't have great hearing, so it's okay.
The baby does, though.
Oh,
Don't wake the baby.
To be fair, Sheridan's deaf. I'll tell her to take your hearing aids out. I'll be like, Sherry, take your hearing aids out. You shouldn't laugh about that. Guys, I'm only laughing because I know my sister and I know she'll think that's funny.
You don't have to caveat it. It's fine. Well, speaking about marriages and speaking about weddings, Britt, you have an update which you shared on socials before you shared it with any of us. And I don't know how I feel about that, but you have chosen your dress.
Yeah, and that wasn't intentional either. Sometimes I think, and I don't know if this is the right thing, sometimes I think like I talk too much on here. I know it's a talking platform, but I'm like, does anyone care? So no, but like about my dress. That's what I meant. Like I didn't want to make the assumption that people cared more about my dress than, whatever. So I did share on socials. You might have seen it. But yes, I chose my dress for my wedding, which is very exciting and very nerve-wracking because I didn't choose a dress. I'm designing it. Now, for those of you that know, I'm not a designer naturally. You've seen my shrine on my wall. You've seen how artistic and creative I am. Minimal.
Britt doesn't design. She just sends elements of things that she likes and says, I like this. None of them work together cohesively, but individually they're great elements. And then she goes, make that work. And I'm like, cool. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that, but I'll Frankenstein this shit together.
Because you're so creative. Anyway, I didn't really know what I want. And it's funny. And I talked about this a little bit on my socials, but I think some people grow up thinking about their wedding their entire life. I don't know if you were like that.
No,
but
not at all.
I just was never that girl. I never was the little girl that like dreamt of the big fairy tale wedding when I got older. I don't know why, because I always wanted to get married. Like I looked at my parents' wedding, celebrating their 46 years, and I always wanted that, but I never dreamt about it like that. So I know a lot of people, my sister was one of them. She had like a folder of things but she was with her partner for 7 years, but she had a folder of dresses and she knew what she wanted. So when the day comes, you just press play, like play on, and you can go and organize everything. I just had no idea what I wanted, where I wanted. So I had started when we got engaged, like saving different aspects of wedding dresses that I saw online.
You say this, but to be fair, I did help Ben organize your engagement ring, and it was very handy how many engagement rings you had saved in the back end of your Instagram.
Yeah.
So when Britt was away doing I'm a Celebrity, I was logged in obviously on her Insta because I was helping do like the promotions, and that's when I went back into all your saved, and I was like, you say you've done no prep, but you have done some mileage here.
Well, the only prep that I'd done, I had a lot of engagement rings because I couldn't wait for that moment. That is a moment I had thought about. But that's because I just wanted that love so much. Like, I was very needy. So
I just wanted the ring.
I just wanted someone to love me.
I didn't want to plan the
diamond.
day. I just want the fucking ring.
I don't want a husband. I just want a diamond.
They're a girl's best friend.
So I found this incredible designer. I went to a few different wedding shops, actually only 2 to be fair. But I found this amazing designer in Sydney. He's not far from me, Stephen Khalil. And I feel like if you've ever gotten married or you've been in that world, you would have seen his stuff at some point because he's huge.
Stephen Khalil did Anna Heinrich's dress.
Yes.
Quite a few years ago when she got married to Tim Roberts.
Yeah, he's just incredible. And I knew that he would make me something bespoke. So I went in and met him and he basically said, like, what are you thinking? And because I've never made a dress in my life. He's like, do you have any ideas? Anyway, I laid out these ideas. He was like, whoa, girl. He's like, these are all incredible. He's like, but we can't put them all together because could you imagine what it would be? There'd be like peacock feathers and there'd be sleeves and there'd be neck things and I don't know, it was a lot. So he was like, let's wind it back. He's like, I love everything, but we need to pick a few key features. And he's like, what do you want? Strapless, high neck, backless, tight,
Like
big.
all of them.
But I didn't know. I was like, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah. Also, how do you know unless you've tried it on and you've seen how it
Exactly.
fits? So it's really hard when you're doing something custom because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to look like on me.
Yeah. So I just took a stab in the dark. What I will say is I have gone for something that I never imagine?
I'm just imagining you walking down the aisle looking like a glamorous Frankenstein because everything's just like
Hanging
a
off
back-
me. There's like bells and whistles.
You've got a peplum, but then you've got massive sleeves. You've got a high neck, but you've got no back. Like
If I look like a Frank,
belt, like the whole thing's a train, but short in the front. Like
have you seen it? Have you seen it?
it's gorgeous.
If I walk down the aisle and your first thought is, look at that beautiful Frankenstein, I have failed. I have failed miserably. It's going to be a grim fucking day. Crash tackle me off that aisle.
I have a question for you all, though. Okay, so when I was going through the process of getting married, and as one of like my
Here we go. I know.
as one of my best friends, Britt, you were there along for the ride at every single stage. I didn't really keep my wedding dress a secret from my really close friends. I showed you. I got you involved. I got your opinions. Britt hasn't shown anyone. She won't show anyone. She's keeping it to herself.
I need to butt in.
If you say you've fucking seen it, Keeshia, I'm
Wait
going to
for
lose it.
Britt was trying to show me something in her phone and she was swiping across and I saw wedding dresses and I was like, oh, is that? And I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so beautiful. And Britt goes, that's not the one. And she was keeping on swiping. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't like that one. It was just not what I imagined Britt would ever get married in.
And then now imagine if it is. And
then Britt kind of looked at me and froze. She was playing a prank on me. I thought I'd just admitted to the fact that I really didn't like her wedding dress.
Keeshia hasn't seen the dress. Look,
haven't-
Laura doesn't believe it. She has. I promise you, no one has seen it.
I just want to see. I want to be inside the
Me.
covenant.
I want to be under the dress. I don't know.
Just want to be inside you, Britt.
I think
One last time.
You can do that before you can see the dress. It makes it sound like we hook up on a regular.
I'm a married woman, 2 years success.
I thought us hooking up at her wedding was special.
No, neither of you are special to me. I'll take anything. It was a long 10 years, Keeshia. The other thing I will say, as my tidbit of information, is obviously there's more than one dress.
Oh, so now you're keeping 3 dresses from us.
There's 25 dresses. I won't be
of-
at the wedding. I'll just be getting changed the whole night.
None of that surprises me. Hey, the most annoying part of my wedding was going and getting changed. That was annoying.
Yeah, you wore pants.
I wore pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do wear pants in the relationship. Sorry, Matt. It's a joke.
Sparkly pants.
He's going to hate that. No, we're equal. We're equal partners.
But I'm assuming, mate, us and our like trying to cover our tracks. I am going to make that transition as quick as possible. Like, but I think that's not excessive. Me saying there's 2 dresses is not like everyone does that now. It's standard to have a second dress for the reception and the dancing and stuff like that. I am just going to whip it off, make the quickest change, and then get back out there. That's
Well,
in my head.
I want it to be known here first that I'm very sad that I haven't seen it. And I am so excited to see what it looks like. You're going to be the most beautiful bride.
What we will say that's exciting is Laura and Tony May are making my wedding ring.
Yeah. I haven't started yet, but I am.
Also shocked. I keep subtly resending the design to her. I'm like,
No, to be fair,
Joking.
yes, we are. We're going to make the wedding band that you want is amazing. We're going to make you a wedding band
Yeah.
that's going to sit under that monstrous rock that you have, and it's going to be glorious.
and we're
You're
making
gonna,
Ben's as well.
You're going to be able to be seen from outer space with all of the glitz.
Yeah,
and the
that's what I
glam.
want.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And we're making Ben's. We're making Ben's too. I'm sort of designing Ben's with Laura, but it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So then you'll be on my finger the rest of my life.
Well, after the joke I just made about being inside you, that's probably a better place to be. Sorry. It's a really weird one because I always feel as though like Tony May and Life Uncut are 2 very separate things. And so it feels like they're 2 very separate lives. And so like on the rare occasions that they kind of overlap, it's very cool for me. I can't wait to make a Brit. I feel very privileged that you want me to. And it's going to be amazing.
Can I ask a question about rings? Do people put as much time and effort into designing their wedding bands as what they do their engagement rings, or is it kind of like an afterthought?
No, it depends on what it is these days. Like, so a lot of people obviously think the engagement ring is a really big deal. Usually the engagement ring though, I mean, it's different for every couple, but often the engagement ring is designed by the partner. So they might have a bit of an idea or a vision that's kind of been like gently massaged by the soon-to-be bride.
There's a spreadsheet.
But
Rings have been sent.
Rings have been saved, there's images, there's references, but overall the design is often the kind of like imagination of the person who's proposing. But then I find now that like the wedding band, some people want something really simple because the engagement ring's enough, but a lot of people for the wedding band choose something that's like more decorative or more elaborate because it gives them the opportunity to choose something that represents them a little bit more. And also depending on what you do for work, work or depending on how high your engagement ring sits, a lot of people take their engagement ring off and just wear their wedding band. So it really,
they?
yeah. Well, it depends on what it is you do for a job. If you're a nurse or you work using your hands a lot, like there's definitely some rings that can't be worn. So everyone is different. Some people don't have wedding rings, like wedding bands. Some people only have engagement bands and vice versa. But it's really, really like everything goes now when it comes to wedding and engagement rings.
Well, Ben can't wear one because he's a goalkeeper. Like he's got gloves on in his hands every day. So he can't wear one. Like he's going to have one, but it will be worn at like nighttime or weekends, I guess. But he wants to get maybe like a tattoo there instead.
Yeah, I love that.
Which is cute.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different for everyone. A lot of guys like don't end up wearing theirs all the time because they're going to the gym or they can't, like they work
and
with their
cheating
hands.
and like you can't always wear them. Sometimes you have to keep your options open.
It's good if you can permanently brand them with a tattoo. Yeah. It's a great way to know that it's never coming off.
Brittany.
Was it? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So last Thursday, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, he made a very big announcement, which is something that we have all been talking about. It is around raising the age for kids using social media. So currently, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware, 13-year-olds and below are not able or shouldn't be able to access social media. And they're wanting to raise the age of that to what's been proposed 16 years old. This is going to roll out across all of Australia, but specifically Meta, so TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It could also roll out across YouTube. It hasn't been, like the policies themselves haven't been finalised, but it's something that they're hoping to have rushed through before the end of the year, and this policy will be in place by the end of 2025. When we first heard about this concept, and it's definitely made its way into like the pop culture realm as well. And the reason for that is because Whipper, who some of you might know, Fitzy and Whipper, they do the breakfast show on Nova. Whipper's been really strongly behind this very public push called Raise the Age 36 months, which was the petition that started this conversation. Now, when this very first came out and I saw it, my first initial reaction was like, incredible. Yes, we should be raising the age of kids using social media. We all know it is well documented how damaging, how toxic, and how like insidious social media is for young kids who are being exposed to content that is far more mature for their abilities to comprehend.
That was my initial reaction as well.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, this is brilliant. This is what we need. Actually, interestingly, I had some friends message me, forward me news articles from around the world on this topic. Australia, breaking news, Australia looks to ban, like, and they were all celebrating. People from Switzerland, the UK, America, so many different people. And that is how huge this news is because we have so much freedom on social media. But the fact that this went around the world and other people were messaging it to me and I asked them, I was like, what do you think about that? And they were all clapping hands, celebrating. They were like, this is what the world needs.
Yeah, it's like it's a world first. Well, it's not specifically a world first, but of its kind it is. Now, I also shared it on my stories on the weekend. I reshared an Instagram post that was like celebrating the fact that the age was going to be raised. And I was really surprised by the responses. It was such a mixed bag. And I think if you had asked us earlier, I would have thought that it was so obvious that this was a good thing. But the more that I unpacked it and the more that I had conversations with the people who had an issue with it, the more that we have done some research on it, it has really left a really big question for everybody here. And that's why we wanted to discuss it as to whether raising the age is a good thing or whether it can have a lot of complications that come with it also.
It is so complex. And I think the issue for me is, and I've been trying to listen to the pros and cons, and I don't have kids, so it's really hard for me to know what a lot of parents are dealing with in the day-to-day, like when their child comes home upset about something, if they've seen them consuming something they shouldn't. I'm not exposed to that, but I know myself, if I had children, I would not want them to be on social media.
Yeah.
So as a blanket statement, I can say I would be happy if social media didn't exist and kids didn't even know what it was until 16. That's my perfect world. The problem is we don't live in that world. And what has been proposed, it's not enforceable, like it's not policeable. Nobody actually knows what it's going to look like yet, which is a bit of the criticism that people are receiving now after this announcement. Like this bill has not passed yet, but I think a lot of people are getting carried away with a lot of clickbait that's going around. Like everyone's thinking, oh, this has happened. This is coming into fruition in 12 months. It's not yet. It looks like it will. But I also understand that we're in a society now where, you know, when I think of my childhood, I would say, yes, I would love my kids to be in that childhood. I would love my kids to not know what the internet was or social media. I didn't have it and I turned out just fine. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world where kids are learning. They're not writing on chalkboards anymore. They're doing things on iPads. So in a way, I have to almost check myself and check my bias around it, because I'm like, we do live in a world where kids need to have that connection and exposure.
Well, to give you the details on how this has kind of come to light so far. So the presentation that Anthony Albanese has done, he has said that there's going to be no grandfathering on these laws. So it basically means that any children who are under the age of 15 now, because if it takes a year to come in, 16-year-olds will be exempt from it, but under the age of 15 now, so under the age of 16 when it comes into effect, they will no longer be able to be using social media, even if they currently have social media. So they will have to have the accounts removed. The area where this gets really tricky is because there's the big question around how is it going to be enforced and how is it enforceable? He's come out and said that the parents and the children will not be liable. So if it does turn out that a child under the age of 16 has a social media account, there's not going to be consequences for that child, and there won't be consequences for the parent, even though it is something that is, quote unquote enforced. The consequences will lie for Meta. Now, currently Meta itself, it can be fined if there are users under the age of 13 who are using the platform, and those fines can be anywhere up to $1 million. But it's a really, really challenging thing to police. And I think for anybody who's been on social media and knows the platform, all you have to do is tick a few buttons and to prove, and quote unquote, that you're over the age of 13. So there's a lot of grey area at the moment as to how this is going to be enforced. That hasn't been fleshed out yet, but there has been a lot of concerns that have been raised by child safety online experts, which says that even though this sounds great on paper, I don't want to use the word performative, but it almost feels slightly performative because it is a real blanket rule that's going to have no real life impact or significant influence on how children use social media. I kind of liken it to alcohol, for example. And it's probably even more accessible and easier than alcohol, because to get alcohol, kids have to go into bottle shops. Like, we know that there's a process to do that. But as kids, we were all drinking under the age of 18, or a lot of us were. A lot of us would go to parties, there would be alcohol present. And so the question is if you put a blanket ban on something like social media and you stop children from being able to access it, won't they just find other ways around it? And we all know that when kids are doing things in secrecy and then there's shame attached to it, that if something really troubling or a problem does arise, if they're accessing that content, but they're doing it in an environment where they're not allowed to, it creates an imbalance where the kids can no longer go to their parents and say, hey, mum, I've experienced this really scary, frightening, intimidating thing online. I'm either being bullied or I've seen pornography or something that I don't know how to deal with. Because the response to that in a lot of ways is going to be, well, you shouldn't have been on the platform in the first place. So now it's creating an environment where kids are going to do it anyway, but they're going to be scared to talk about it, which could essentially be more unsafe.
But I don't know. I don't know if I feel the same. I think sometimes the unknown is not fathomable, or it's a really scary place to be until you're there and it becomes normalized. So I want to liken it to, think back to when smoking was fine and deemed healthy. People used to smoke in a hospital while they were giving birth. That was standard. You'd smoke your whole pregnancy. You would drink at any age until laws were brought in to say you can't drink under 18. Of course, people still did it, but we knew that that was the limit. You can't smoke in a hospital anymore for this reason. Shocking at the time. People couldn't believe it. But all of a sudden, time goes past, the next generation comes through and it becomes a normal thing. Now, yes, people are still going to do it, but I think it comes back to having that really good family life or the connection with your kids and your parents. So I would hope that it becomes, generations come through where it's normal and you just know that social media is one of those things that you do when you grow up.
But I guess my worry for it is that this is the language that students and kids are using, right? Like, kids use social media. They use it to interact. They use it to communicate. They are so social media literate that it is their wheelhouse. Whereas as adults, a lot of the parents are simply not social media literate. A lot of the advisors, a lot of people who work in politics, they're not social media literate, but they're coming in and putting in place these policies. And all that sort of says to me is that they say, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to understand you and how you communicate and where you communicate, and I'm going to make the platform that you communicate on safer for you, I'm going to tell you can't use it anymore. We were speaking about this on radio as well, because it has permeated a lot of conversations today. Michelle Mitchell, she's a child specialist. She speaks about child behaviour, and her take on this whole thing which I thought was really interesting, is that she said that a lot of the parents who are extremely excited about this change have tweens. They have like young kids who they are scared shitless about them getting and having social media. And so they want to prolong that for as long as possible. But the parents of teenagers who have 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds or 16-year-olds who are living in the world that they're living in currently online are like, this doesn't work. It doesn't support these kids or keep them safe in the way that you're hoping it will.
I think one of the biggest problems here is the fact that the age is 16. It's just too old. And it's crazy to think that you could be going to work every single day. You've left school, you're in your car, driving to your job, but you can't be on social media.
Imagine if you are someone or your kid is someone who started school when they're 4 years old, so that when they're in year 10, they're still 15. And they decide after year 10 that they don't want to continue with school. They want to go to TAFE and they want to do a different degree or whatever. They want to do a skill or a speciality or whatever. They go to TAFE and they do marketing. You can't do marketing in today's currency of how we communicate and how we advertise without understanding social media. So it's like, it almost feels like the drastic jump from 13 to 16 is too great. Like the age gap and the age distance is too much. And I don't know what would have been a better solution. Like, is it 14? Is it 15? Or is it simply that 13 is the correct age and that there needs to be better parameters around the accessibility for people who are 13 to 16. It just feels as though it's a huge amount of responsibility to dump onto a 16-year-old who hasn't had the skills or the experience or the learnings to be able to manage a platform either.
Having said that, I still do think 13 is too young. Like, your first year as a teenager, think back to 13, that's leaving year 6. That's going into high school. So I don't think that's the right time either. And we have made a lot of focus on the fact that this is Meta, right? We're using the big companies like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of those things. But this will flow into things like YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, basically any other platform that serves as people connecting online. Like that's essentially what this blanket statement would look like. This is where I think there needs to be a little bit more time and care taken, because YouTube can also be a cesspit, but things like YouTube can be very educational as well. And I know we can say that about all social media.
Is that going to mean that then kids find alternate social media platforms in order to connect on? Social media platforms that are less regulated, that are less safe, that have less rules and less guidelines because they've kind of slipped underneath the blanket of what has been and hasn't been restricted. I just think, look, I mean, like I said, I'm in two minds about it. I know something has to be done, but I don't think a blanket ban is going to be the fix. Yes, it will allow some parents to be able to have that conversation with their children later. It'll push that down the track a bit. Like, hey, sorry, you can't have it because it's illegal. But what happens if they go about getting it anyway? What's the solution then?
But then that raises the question, just because people are going to do something anyway doesn't mean it shouldn't have restrictions around it. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be illegal. Like I said before, we know kids are going to go and drink and do drugs and try all that stuff. We know that they're going to find a way. Of course they're going to find a way. Of course they're going to find a way to be on social media. But that doesn't mean you don't have to make it any more difficult for them or put restrictions on there so that they're more hyper aware of it actually being an issue, and it's been an issue for a reason. It's almost like trying to make the best of a bad situation. That's how I feel. And when I think about some of the things that go down online, it's an absolute fucking cesspit. It is a cesspit that kids are not equipped to handle. And I know they still need this connection, and I know they still need it for education. I'm so about that. But when you see what the other side it is, and you see the kids that have taken their life purely from being bullied online, I think we do have to make changes. I just don't know how they're going to implement it in a way where everybody is happy and everybody is safe.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that where the real initiative needs to start, and where I think we'll see the most change, is by cleaning up the platforms, is by using AI to better make it a collectively safe place. I don't believe for a second that there isn't the capability, the infrastructure or the technology to clean up social media and to make the content less of this kind of like free speech, say what you want, you can live your own life and do whatever you want online, and then there's very few rules about it. And I think that should be a responsibility that falls on Meta, that if you're going to have accessibility from 13 years, if that's what you have put as the benchmark, then the content that's on your platform needs to be appropriate for someone who is 14, 15, 16 to be able to view. Legislation is never as fast as what is actually happening. That's the real issue, is that these platforms move at such pace and at such speed. People adopt the new ways of using technology. Kids especially, we're early adopters. We want to use the things that are at our disposal. We're all using AI at the moment. Where's the legislation around what you can and can't do when it comes to AI? Like, the rules are so slow at catching up to where we actually are in real life. And I think that that's always going to be the place that we're at with this type of technology. That's why it kind of feels a little bit futile, and it feels a little bit like we're celebrating a win that isn't really a win, because I just don't know if it's going to have the overarching effect that we all want it to. Like, we can all be hopeful. No one's saying it's a terrible idea, but I just don't think it is worth the amount of excitement that it's receiving, because I just don't think it's going to be as effective as we hope it is. Having social media for some people gives a sense of community, and it gives a sense of something that's bigger than them. There are ways in which it is positive, and like, am I saying that they outweigh the negative? Absolutely not. But I think that maybe it's around having more restrictions for people who are of a certain age group. Maybe that age group of 13 to 16 should have a different online experience that's managed in a different way, that has restrictions around it, rather than simply saying you can't use it.
I personally love that it's been actioned. I do. It's not the right answer, but I love that people and groups are taking the initiative enough to go and literally try and change laws to protect their minors. Okay, it's time for Accidentally Unfiltered, and I actually have one today that has come from somebody that I know, and I'm just going to use that as a blanket statement.
You did this.
Someone that I know told me this last week.
It happened to you.
It was very funny. So it was a guy friend. So he'd been out with this chick and they were hitting it off. It was like the first time. And then they got home and they were hooking up, and she was laying down. Well, I think he was just going down on her. I'll just say it. He was going down on her. And she was going, oh, it feels so good. So he was like, yeah, getting into it. And she's like, feels so good. So he was like going.
I feel uncomfortable just listening to this.
I know. Anyway, this went on a couple of times, and he was like getting more and more into it, because that's what we want. Like, we want the encouragement. We want to know we're doing the right thing.
Positive affirmation, validation. Give it to me. He has a validation king.
So then all of a sudden, when he thinks he's thriving, she sits up. He thinks she's about to orgasm, and she just vomits everywhere. She was saying, I don't feel so good. She was going, I don't feel so good. And he was going, yeah, I thought he was like doubling down. But she thought he thought she said that feels so good. And she was saying, I don't feel so good.
Yes. That is messed up.
That is so funny. So that was their moment.
Wow. It was a different type of ejaculation.
It was.
Ew.
Explosion.
Ew. Ew.
Anyway.
I came from the top end. Maybe she was like a bit hungover, or like felt a bit seasick. You know, like if you got motion sickness. Yeah, she was hungover. So she had like motion sickness and was like, oh dear, it's coming.
Maybe he was rocking her too vigorously.
Maybe there was some oysters involved. I don't know. But we do know there was a miscommunication, and that's how it ended.
To be fair,
it's funny.
Better the top end than the bottom end if you're feeling sick.
Also, what I will say is he told me that with intent of saying for the podcast. He was like, he's like, I know you can use it.
Are they hanging out again, or is that it?
I don't. Oh, no, I do know. No.
All right. Well, I do want to say this though, guys. If you have, because we've not done a proper call out in a long time, if you have an accidentally unfiltered story, if you're new to the pod and you don't know what that is, it is your most embarrassing story. It has been a backbone of Life Uncut for so long. And we recently did a survey, and we know you guys still love it, but you hearing those stories relies on you sending them to us. So if you have an embarrassing story, something that's happened to you that every time we do this segment, you think, oh, fuck, I really should send that in. Please send us your accidentally unfiltered stories, because we love them. We also think that they're the best things ever. But sometimes we just don't get ones that are funny enough.
And you're
so
always anonymous.
We need them to be as fucked up as possible. Yeah. That's kind of the benchmark. Anyway, suck and sweet, what is your suck?
My suck for the week is This is a double suck. My suck for the week is Delilah came home from dog care the other day and she had rolled in something.
She was covered in like wax. I remember. I saw this on Instagram.
She was covered in, and when I say it, everyone's like, just wash her. I have never experienced anything like it. I washed her 3 times thoroughly and nothing. Her hair was just matted together. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I tried to cut clumps and it was a disaster. It was never coming out.
Also, how annoying is it when you're like, hey, there's this thing and people are like, here's the really obvious solution that you clearly haven't tried yet. Wash your dog.
Yeah.
Thank you, Einstein.
Yeah. And I did try everything. A lot of people like put oil in it and stuff. I tried everything. It was not coming. So I was like, guys, I'm going to have to cut her. Wow. The meltdown that the internet had over the fact that I was going to cut Delilah because everyone's concerned that you're not supposed to get rid of their hair. And I was like, guys, I'm not keeping this in her. So I cut her. She looks brilliant. That's fine. Like I just cut it. They managed to do a good job. I was like, cut it without shaving her. But then I started to get sent all these articles, and this is where the suck gets suckier. It's got to be what it was. There are news articles going around everywhere saying in the eastern beaches of Sydney, these balls, like this is a full police investigation, these balls have been washing up on like all the beaches and they're full of drugs and feces. They're a sappy ball. It's unlike anything you've seen. Like it's a sticky ball. They don't even know why.
It was about a month ago that they started washing up, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they're still like along the beach.
What do you mean they're full of drugs and feces? Who's mixing the two
was
things together?
That's
So
the
strange.
quote.
They're like these black tar balls.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
they were all
tar.
over the beaches.
But she wasn't black, but it was, I'm like, maybe has gone to one of the beaches with the dog walker and rolled in that. But I was like, does that mean she had fucking feces and drugs on her?
I think you would have smelt them and been high.
Because she didn't think, I'm high on feces, ew.
Delilah's really active today.
She's on pinging. So that was my suck. And my sweet was I went to Coldplay. So for the first time ever, I have never seen them before. I got to go and see them on Saturday night and they were truly incredible.
So I saw Chris Martin on the weekend on Saturday walking around Bondi Beach. So I was down the beach with Matt and with the girls and we were just walking along the promenade and I kind of like walked past him and I didn't clock that it was him straight away because he just like looks like a very normal dude except he was dressed like he was famous. Like he was dressed in a way that just screamed, I'm so fucking cool. I'm too cool for Bondi. I don't
Like
belong
LA.
here. I belong in the States. He had like deep, like a kind of like cobalt blue baggy pants on. Like
Keeshia?
baggy. But like, yeah.
Keeshia
similar.
right now?
Like full baggy cargo pants. And then he was wearing like a singlet that was tucked in. He had chains on. But that makes him sound like a hip hop dancer. He wasn't. He just looked really cool. And then he had no shoes on. And so he walked past and as I saw him, I was like, oh, that guy looks, oh, that's Chris Martin. And a couple of other people were doing a double take as well. And then you would think someone who is as famous as him, who was completely by himself as well, he wasn't with an entourage, he was solo, would try and be inconspicuous. But he walked down past the kiddie pool and then walked directly along the shoreline. So everyone who's sitting on the beach and looking down is just seeing this dude in bright blue fucking pants walking across the beach.
He's just living his best life.
So everyone's like whipping their phone out and trying to like take a photo of him from behind. He was very, very nice to everyone who stopped and said hello. But there was quite a few people who asked if they could get a photo and he was like, no photos. And then he just kind of like went on his way. And then he just walked into the distance down Bondi Beach. It was very odd. Anyway.
It's funny because if he didn't dress like that, he would be so unassuming that no one would even know. If he just wore normal board shorts.
If
hat.
he was dressed normally, you would never have known that it was him. It was purely because the way he was dressed so did not fit in with what was happening in Bondi. Like he looked so like unique in his style. Like he looked just really, really cool.
You know what's really cool is the show is so environmentally friendly. So he makes it as environmentally friendly as possible. And there's a whole presentation that before he comes out on stage on the big screens that talks about everything they're doing. They're like, and they even say, look, we're aware that we have to fly here. We're aware that we consume what we do. But they have bikes set up around the show where people constantly go on and pedal the bike that stores energy for the next night's show. The whole floor, I think it's called a kinetic floor, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole floor of the stadium is when you move and you're dancing, renews the energy for the next show as well. So he's
amazing.
It's amazing. They're storing up energy, and he says at the start, you guys can power this show. If you keep jumping on these bikes, you'll be powering the show. It's really, really cool.
That's really.
You paid for a ticket. You got to work out while you're there.
That's amazing.
There's 100,000 people there. You could, if you want, you can get on a pedal for 2 minutes. It's really, really cool.
My suck for the week is that I missed Coldplay. So I was meant to go to the Coldplay concert with Britt, and then unfortunately it coincided with a friend's birthday and I couldn't go. And I was very sad because I felt like it was like a once in a lifetime thing. Even though it was really nice to go to my friend's birthday, I was like, oh, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my suck. But my sweet for the week is something that I don't think anyone else is going to care about, but it's something I feel really proud of for Marley, and I'm really excited for her. She, in the last couple of weeks, has completely figured out how to read. And I know that sounds like, oh, how does one figure out how to weed?
Not from you. She definitely didn't figure it out from you.
But she hasn't started kindergarten yet. She starts next year, and she can already fully read majority of, and I would say simple words. Like she's not reading,
Kinesiologist.
She's not reading the word kinesiologist. That was good. I was trying to think of one long word.
I could tell.
Not a single long word came to my mind.
Do you want to know what the longest disease is in the world? Pneumonia ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
Wow.
Continue, as you were.
You'd be good on trivia.
Thanks.
So she learned to read, and she sits up at nighttime and she has her own little books and she just reads through them herself. And then in the morning, if there's a word that she's come across that she hasn't figured out, she'll bring the book to me in the morning and ask what that word is.
She's like, Mum, what's 50 Shades of Grey?
But it's really impressive, and it's actually really cool having a kid. It's really cool to have a kid who's so excited to learn.
Yeah.
Really wants to learn to read, really wants to learn to do maths. It makes it very easy.
Does that feel intimidating? Because I'm around some kids, Marley being one of them, who are very intelligent. Sometimes they ask me questions and I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm like, wow, the age that you are going to get to where you surpass my intellect is approaching.
The thing that I was more worried about is that just on the weekend we had something happen last week where the teacher talked to me about something that happened at school, and so I had to broach it with Marley, and I was talking to her about the thing that the teacher talked to me about, and she was like, I started bringing it up and speaking to her about it, and she goes, hey, how do you know? The teacher spoke to you, didn't she? And I was like, yes.
She betrayed you.
I was like, the other mum told her, and then the teacher told me, and now I know.
Marley's gaslighting you.
Marley's just like, well,
snitch.
She literally was like, well, why did she do that? And I was like, fuck. She's too smart. She put me on the spot, and I don't want to lie to her.
It's genuinely a reason. Hear me out. People are not going to be happy with what I'm about to say. Genuinely a reason I feel like I'm not sure if I want kids.
Oh, stop it.
You haven't heard my answer yet?
It's because they're too smart.
It's because when they bring their homework home at 14, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think I can do it.
What do you do? What did you do?
That's why I just won't put myself in that position. Let's get out of here.
All right, that is it from us, guys. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review, share it with a friend. Also, if you have your own thoughts around what we were talking about with kids under 16 having access to social media, which is it's a very hot topic at the moment.
Quite polarizing.
We would love to know your thoughts on it as well. Slide into the DMs at Life Uncut Podcast, or you can join the discussion in the Life Uncut discussion group where all the juicy shit goes down.
Bye.
And you know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love. Because
we love love!